Capitol tonight one final time. Now, before the break, we were discussing a new report on executive orders with good government advocate John Caney. After outlining how Governor-elect Andrew Cuomo might wield this clout to improve government transparency, the report examines where a governor's ability to act without legislative approval originates and where the limits of this power lie. Joining me tonight to talk more about that aspect of the report is my father, Dr. Gerald Benjamin. Dad, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Liz.
So basically, this is a power that is afforded the governor in the Constitution, but not specifically lined out.
Well, the governor is head of the executive branch, and he's charged with executing the laws of New York State. So there's a constitutional and a statutory basis that can be found in particular areas of law for action to implement, which is with the executive.
But it's not all encompassing, obviously. I mean, there are rules regarding what you can and cannot do. For example, the governor has the ability to wield his power over the agencies without legislative approval. He has the ability to do what John and I were talking about, which is issue some directives regarding the executive branch. What does he not have the power to do?
Well, the specific area that we were asked to research for this project had to do with the reorganization of government, which is a priority established in the or identified in the campaign by Governor-elect Cuomo, and we found that generally you need legislative authorization to reorganize in New York. There's no constitutional authority given to the governor to reorganize, and in fact there's a lot of constitutional history that shows there have been efforts to get that authority and that at constitutional conventions, and that authority has not been given.
So actually, Governor-elect Cuomo, when he was Attorney General, was pushing for this. In fact, it was one of the accomplishments that he had as Attorney General that he advocated for a law that would enable villages and towns to petition to shut themselves down, if I'm not mistaken, to take themselves out of business, basically.
Well, there are two. We're talking about two slightly different things. One is the power to restructure local government, and the other is the power to reorganize the state government. And the point I was referencing was to reorganize the state government. But you're right, he did advance a law to make it a little easier to dissolve villages and restructure local government, and this remains a major agenda item for him as well. And we also found that there are some limited areas where he acts with regard to local government by executive order, but this larger question of reorganizing local government could not be done that way.
Now,
there's a home rule provision in the state constitution that protects local governments and gives them the autonomy to structure themselves.
And again, the only way to get directly at that would either to have a constitutional convention, which is something that comes along every 10 years unless the legislature acts to push it up, correct?
Every 20 years.
Every 20 years. And then the other thing would be to amend the Constitution, which is a fairly onerous process that has to be two separately elected legislatures and then a public referendum. I mean, neither of those things are easy.
No, they're quite difficult. But with regard to reorganizing the state government, we recommend in this report a legislative veto procedure that's used in a lot of states, either constitutionally or statutorily based. And that would that would essentially require passing legislation giving the governor within a limited time frame the power to reorganize the departments and agencies of the state government, subject to legislative disapproval. That is, if the legislature didn't act, say, in 30 days or 60 days after they received this reorganization proposal, then the reorganization would occur. It's not a universal practice, but it's a common practice in the states, and would let Governor-elect Cuomo get at some of the structural issues he's concerned about.
Now, but the problem is you can see where the legislature probably might not want to give him that power because the public employees unions might not be too thrilled. I mean, what you're talking about is consolidation and streamlining government, which I think a lot of people say is necessary, but it also might cost some jobs.
Well, it's interesting. If you do job cuts, it's like in a way, squeezing a sponge and letting it dry out and making it smaller. When the resources come back, then the resources expand within the same structure. But if you do a restructuring, then there aren't those structural elements to staff after the resources come back, and you might have a greater impact.
Is this the way that things operate in New Jersey? Is that how it works, that the governor has more power than in New York to unilaterally, with legislative oversight, after the fact, reorganize government?
Well, we looked at what's done across the country, and we categorized the powers, and New Jersey's statute is the one that empowers the governor to the greatest degree without a constitutional change. So the governor has the power in New Jersey, under law in New Jersey, to reorganize the state governments subject to legislative veto.
You know, there's a story today in the Times-Union regarding the past 3 governors and how they've actually used executive orders. And it turns out that Governor Patterson hasn't really done that much of them, with the exception of continuing some of the ones that were already put in place by his predecessors. I mean, this is something that really could be used or sort of ignored by governors, generally speaking.
Well, sometimes there are compelling requirements if there's a particular emergency, like that great snowstorm in the North Country that we can recall. I don't know how long ago that was now. Was it a decade ago or less than a decade ago?
The ice storm, yeah, it was quite a long time ago.
Right. Then the governor might declare an emergency by executive order. So if there are circumstances that in law that explicitly require action by executive order, and that might trigger federal aid. But regarding pressing the limits of the executive order authority, Governor Patterson was less willing to do that than say, Governor Cuomo was, for the first Governor Cuomo.
Mario Cuomo. So at this point, we're not getting any hints from Governor-elect Cuomo. That would be Andrew Cuomo, of course. His spokesman is saying that he will be making decisions about executive orders at the appropriate time. But we saw Eliot Spitzer right off the bat make executive orders on the very first day that he was governor, a whole list of them, actually.
Right, and I remember the one having to do with ethics, for example, because I had, as a management confidential employee of the university, I had to act on that and file certain documents and papers, and that can have great symbolic importance. It shows that you're taking charge of the government, you're directing it from the very first day, and it's within your authority to do it, so you don't have to await legislative action. It's important, however, to establish that you're within your range of authority, so you don't end up with a black eye.
Well, we shall see what Andrew Cuomo is going to do. In the meantime, you're actually on one of his transition committees, so perhaps you'll be able to influence it from the outside. I want to thank you very much, my dad, Jerry Benjamin, and also I'll be seeing you soon, tomorrow.
It's great to talk to you, Liz, and I'll see you on Thanksgiving.